Welcome to Mile High Reefers. I'm Scott Anderson, and you guys have been asking for it, so here it is. Here's an update on the tank. This is going to be a good one, so watch the whole thing. First, I'm going to go ahead and make myself sick. It just seems like the right thing to do. Secondly, we're going to add more flow to this tank. It just needs more gyre. And then third, we're going to go ahead and look at the entire tank and see how things are doing. My discosoma mushrooms are starting to kill my euphyllia, and I really find this hard to believe. I really thought the euphyllia would sting the crap out of it. Nonetheless, I've got to get the discosomas out of this section because I like my euphyllia garden way more than the discosomas. Unfortunately, discosomas are hard to remove. I'll show you my method for doing it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shut my pumps off, try to get the euphyllia to pull in, and then cut the rock off that the discosomas and, while I'm there, the Palythoas are attached to. Otherwise, if you just try to cut the discosoma off, you'll leave a piece and they'll grow back. A word of caution here. When working with Palythoas or zoanthids, use gloves. Don't have any open sores in your hands. Wear goggles. These guys can emit a toxin that's actually pretty toxic to people and has even put people in the hospital. So be really careful when working with these guys. Now, up until now, I've worked with Palythoas and zoanthids for years and never had a problem with the toxins, including the ones in this tank. It's never been a problem. Gluing the euphyllia coral on here, you might have noticed I was really shaky. Reason was I was getting the crap stung out of me by that rose bubble tip. So here's what that rose bubble tip did to me. I used to be able to handle these guys like nothing. And look at it now, it just stung the crap out of me. So I think over time I've kind of lost my tolerance to the rose bubble tip sting. It's time for a little bit of honesty. I gave a warning about being careful because of you can get Palythoa toxin when you start messing with these, and that I'd never had a problem with it. Well, this time I did. After working on the tank, I felt a little woozy, laid down on the couch, just kind of hung out. Almost felt like I was drunk. So I laid there for a little bit, ate some lunch, and then when now I got a headache, like I'm coming off of a hangover. So yeah, kind of nasty stuff. So definitely be careful when working around Palythoas. I mean, use gloves, use whatever you got to do. What I think happened in my case, which might have been hard to prevent, was I got that sting from that anemone, and I think that's what allowed the toxins to absorb through my skin. Otherwise, I think I would have been fine. But my tank, I'm kind of worried about now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change out the carbon on the tank to make sure I pull any toxins out of the tank. A couple months ago, Jake Adams of Reef Builders stopped by and dropped off a Glamorca for me to test. We did a whole video together where we tested the gyre flow, and then I did a full review on the gyre itself. I'll link those down below. But I love the flow coming off this pump. It's a nice wide flow, and it could do the full gyre, but what I'm liking is the wideness of the flow, and then what I really want it to do is kind of drop down and come back. To make that happen, I'll be adding another gyre to this side of the tank. So I get this nice wide flow coming across. It's going to kind of come together in the center and then go across the bottom. And since they're going to be alternating a little bit and you won't have those in sync, they're going to kind of be fighting. So I'll have right in the middle of my tank a really nice surge section with lots of random chaotic flow. Should be really cool. The ice cap gyre pump is almost the exact same pump as the Glamorca pump that Jake Adams brought me. And I really liked the Glamorca, so I decided to get the ice cap. Now, they're both officially licensed max spec products. They're going to work almost exactly the same as each other. The only difference is this one's black and not purple and says ice cap, not Glamorca. At least that's all I'm seeing right off. The ice cap's installed, and so far, I'm loving the flow. They're set up exactly the same way, but they don't do exactly the same thing at exactly the same time. So they kind of fight back and forth. So this one kind of has more power at some points, and then this one has more power. So I'm creating a nice section in the middle of really chaotic and fairly high flow. Now, the cool thing about the Gyre is the flow pattern's so wide. So while it may not look like there's a crazy amount of flow going through here, it's quite a bit, but it's all spread out. So it's kind of like the difference between volts and amps. The way I have this set up right now, it's a lot of amps. It's a lot of total volume. So that's what this is doing. And I can crank it higher if I need to. And definitely at night, these pumps are going to kick up to 80% a piece. And this thing is going to be blowing up every bit of detritus in the tank. And that's the way I like my setup. Less flow during the day, lots of flow at night. Now, as you'll notice, I'm still running one of the Aquametic pumps down low. It's my lifter pump for that Sinulaira in back, and I'll show you more about what's going on with it later. How's the tank doing? Really well, actually. The fish are just looking so great, but in the interest of keeping it real, I will say my powder blue showed a couple spots of ick the other day. Now, this doesn't come as a huge surprise, as I got ick in the tank a year, maybe 2 ago, and I've basically been living with ick. I did a whole video on that. Really, I can't tell you what the secret is other than I have super healthy fish and they've got a really strong slime coat. They eat a really varied, balanced diet, and they're able to live with a small amount of ick in the tank, and it can be somewhat under control. Now, I don't recommend this, it's just how it's ended up working out on my tank. My clownfish have started laying their eggs in between the clam and the bubble coral. It's just been the coolest thing to watch. They swim between the clam and the bubble, they go in, they go out. It's just really awesome to watch these guys raise their eggs in this fashion. A while back when I re-aquascaped, I said I'd go ahead and trim up the Sinulaira because it was too close to the bubble coral. Well, I didn't do it, and the bubble coral did it for me. This thing is a monster. My Montiporus section's doing really well. Coloration is great. It looks good on camera. It looks even better to the naked eye. There's been a lot of growth. Everything's starting to grow together and entangle, and I love that look. I love it all growing together. Now, that's not to say there isn't warfare. You'll definitely see stuff dying off around where it's growing together, and it's just part of it. It's starting to grow into that real section of reef that I've always wanted. Going forward, I'm gonna have to do a little pruning, but for now, I wanna watch it and see how it goes forward and how it entangles and how it really grows into that real solid chunk of reef that I want. For the most part, this tank is really doing what I want it to do. Maintenance is relatively low at this point. It just grows and it's wonderful. The Aiptasia issue I was dealing with is mostly gone. The combination of Aiptasia X and peppermint shrimp appears to be doing the job. It's going really well. The only real problem in the tank is the flatworms, and they're not that big of a deal. They don't really do much more than annoy some Discosoma mushrooms. And eventually I'll get a chorus rasp or something to get rid of those guys. So thank you for watching this episode of Mile High Reefers. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.